north of the Kharkov region, early this morning it began its active actions in two directions at once. The first is conditionally to Kharkov, a little to the west, the second is to Volchansk to the east. The day before, according to the armed forces of Ukraine, Russian sabotage groups probed the positions of Ukrainian troops for several days, and aviation and artillery struck the border points of Zelensky's army units and his fortified areas. And in the morning, infantry, reinforced with tanks, began to be drawn into Ukrainian territory in small groups. Moreover, everything so far suggests that today only reconnaissance in force was carried out. But in view of the fact that the main positions of the Ukrainian troops are located somewhat in depth, the Russians, without any problems, occupied a territory in the Kharkov sector with a front length of about 20 kilometers and a depth of up to 5 kilometers. On Volchansky they occupied the heights north of Volchansk and reached the outskirts of the city. Most likely, the main battles will unfold tomorrow or the day after tomorrow, when the main forces of both sides enter the battle. Then it will become clear how serious the plans of our command are and what can be expected here. Kharkov direction. What scenarios of an offensive by the Russian armed forces are possible? There are actually several of them. Moreover, each subsequent one follows from the first, as a more global version of it. The first scenario is to teach a lesson to the Ukrainian troops. It is obvious that the political leadership of Russia is very worried about the terrorization of the border territories of the Belgorod region by units of the armed forces of Ukraine. And the creation of a buffer zone and defeating enemy units in this area would be very useful here. The second scenario is the shackling of reserves for the battle for Kupiansk. Inflicting a defeat in the border area and teaching the Ukrainians a lesson is, of course, the right thing, but if you use a little more forces and means, you can carry out a more powerful offensive operation with the occupation of a relatively large settlement, Volchansk, and thereby creating a convenient bridgehead for further movement forward to the rear of the Kupianskaya enemy group. This will limit the reserves of the armed forces of Ukraine in this direction, and it will be easier for units east of Kupiansk to attack in their sectors. Scenario 3. A large offensive operation from the north. If we look closely at the map, we will see that a head-on assault on Kupiansk is pointless. The Russians will be able to approach the river Oskol, but it will be extremely difficult to break through the defense here further, taking into account its crossing and the high western bank. It would be more correct to strike this group in the rear through Volchansk, pinning it down with local operations along the front, near Ivanovka and Berestovoy. And then the whole operation scheme changes to the opposite. The Russian group north becomes the main strike group, and other units hold down the reserves. It was precisely this possible scenario, based on the front configuration, that I spoke about 6 months ago in my blog. And in principle, it seems to me the most optimal. In this case, there will be no need to cross rivers and you can advance in a terrain that is relatively convenient for this. Is there enough strength for him? Don't know. In general, which of these options will be implemented, I think, will soon become clear.